What's happening, people? Back with another reaction, back with some more Gary Numan, and we're going back to his 1979 album, The Pleasure Principle, which I was reading, that the cover, I understand, is based on like a 1930s like artwork, which of the same name, I think. So yeah, ultimately, I didn't realize it had that sort of historical quirk to it. I enjoy references that are sort of, obscure and historically arcane. Nevertheless, I am going to try to get to Gary Numan a little bit more regularly. Admittedly, I just started this deep dive a couple weeks ago, but I just started going through John Foxx's solo material. I'm also going through Ultravox post John Foxx, which I realize they start going in a very different direction, but I'm also going through early Human League, Reproduction, and now up to Travelogue. And I have been reading the last few days about the way in which Human League, Gary Numan, and ultimately John Foxx are considered real kind of synth pioneers of the late 70s, early 80s. I've also been reading how there's some cross-pollination, especially between Numan and Foxx. I think I was even reading an interview where I think it was Numan was saying that they definitely had influenced each other. And then I understand ultimately Foxx will start to go in a different direction as we go farther along in the 80s. But yeah, as I said, I'm going to try to get to Numan semi-regularly at least, so that I can go through it at the same time I'm going through John Foxx especially, but also just, maybe for sake of contrast, Ultravox as well as Human League, but I'm about to get to the point where I realize Human League changes up the lineup and splits and Heaven 17 comes about, so many related things to go through. Once again, thank you for Han Solo, not only providing all this music and allowing us to go on these journeys, but giving me a sense, which I'm increasingly trying to put the pieces together, but why it's interesting and relevant to go through all this together. So I will stop talking and stop hand gesturing, and we will listen to Gary Numan. The tune is Complex. I will say it's a kind of title that it feels more conceptual. It gives you an image of a very intricate, maybe ornate, or at least a process with many moving parts. Now, moving parts, it could be, each one could be essential so that if you pull out a single thread, the whole thing collapses. But it does also make me think of something like Rube Goldberg's inventions, where they're all these crazy moving parts. A ball falls down, goes across a thing, which hits a lever, which swings around and makes something pop up, which then knocks something off the edge, which ultimately, at the end of this 50-step process, it turns on a light switch, or it draws the number 1. So yeah, moving parts and something that is complex might not necessarily be purposeful or efficient, but yeah, complex, it gives me a concept that maybe sonically we're going to hear something which has a lot of different parts and, might be moving in conjunction or maybe sort of perpendicularly sonically. So yeah, we'll have to see, but let's get it. This is Gary Numan, the tune is Complex, and it's from his 1979 album, The Pleasure Principle. Like a dark Vangelis. Sounds like an electric fiddle. Synthetic whale sounds? This is great. This is very electrically atmospheric. a classical sort of feel with a rhythmic synthetic feel.
Don't let them touch me. Please, don't let them lie. Don't let them see me.
Who is this them then? I love that sort of sweeping drone. Yeah, really cool. As I said, an interesting blend where, in a way, it feels like it's kind of like traditional score music, but with this sort of like synth haze and a bit sort of dissonance on top of it. So, and again, with a sort of like rhythmic percussive beat. So, a really interesting track. I'll admit I didn't catch most of those lines. I did hear the bit about them a couple times, but I'm not sure like who they are, so I'm not sure the significance of that. So yeah, gotta listen to it some more. And I know like a lot of these early 80s tunes, you know, in some cases it'll be hard to hear the lyrics, in other cases, you know, they're sort of like, they're ideas or they're sort of expressive statements, but there's no clear way to stitch them all together. So again, I will try to catch what I can, but I'm aware for some of these early 80s groups, the lyrics are not so much the point as the sonics or the sort of like experimental nature of what they were doing, which again, I realize for people like Newman and Fox and so on, this is very much, you know, they're part of that conversation, if not sort of the, you know, some of the main features of the conversation. So yeah, big ups to all the friends and champions of the channel, but again, especially to Han Solo, who has sort of sent me down this particular lane of early 80s music as I've gone through these deep dives. So yeah, let me know what you think. I will see you next time. Peace.